Greetings to my fellow peace blunderers, and today we're looking at a very interesting idea of how you can remove annoying pins on your knight. Take a look at the position here, for example, bishop g4 from black, and we've been here like 1,000 times before. If you'd like to develop your queen to c2, b3 or a4, well, you can't really do that at the moment because the black pieces will likely capture the knight on f3 and just ruin your pawn structure. At the same time, you could potentially prevent the pin with something like bishop e2, but like, come on, you've already developed it to d3. It's unlikely that you want to move it back to e2. It looks a bit passive, and it is. This way, the pin still remains and our problem is still unsolved. However, although this move is not wrong at all, and the engine will even say that the position is like equal, maybe slightly better for white, it does have some serious practical downsides. Let me show you a sample variation of how white can get in trouble after g4 here in just a couple of moves. So we have bishop g6 retreating, obviously, and attacking d3 bishop. Queen c2, developing the queen a little bit, putting the pressure on the g6 bishop simultaneously and defending our bishop on d3 as well. Takes, and now f5. And again, the position is equal, it's pretty much all zeros. Again, maybe white is slightly better, nothing wrong really happened. But I need to ask you a question. Which side would you rather take here, white or black? White's king side is now quite suspect, and the h4 square is very weak. It's pretty much under black's control, with the bishop and the queen staring at it. And should the black f-pawn move away, the black rook will happily join in the action, maybe even some doubling up is going to happen at some point in the game. Regardless, it can get very hard for white to defend. And here, my beautiful people, I would like to ask you a question. Have you ever had this game when you got rid of the knight pin in this sort of manner with h3 and then g4 and then lost the king side, lost the game terribly because you just got slaughtered? And I'm almost willing to bet that most of you will recall at least one such occasion. And that's why let's finally get to the idea that I was advertising at the beginning of the video. Let's go back to the position where we just played h3. All right, h3 is the move that we're still going to play, with the bishop retreating to h5. And instead of playing g4 like we did last time, critically weakening h4, f4, as well as creating a target for black to attack with f5, for example. Let me go back and show you the real trick in this position, which is also, by the way, the engine's best move. In this position, and in many other similar positions, and I'll show you what I mean by that, you can and probably should play g3. Now, what is the idea behind g3? It's very simple, actually. What we're going to do is we're going to move the king to g2, where the king, not the queen, but the king protects the f3 knight and protects the h3 pawn as well. At the same time, the pawn not being on g4 but being on g3 is still controlling the aforementioned f4 and h4 squares. And finally, because the pawn is not on g4, there is no target for black to attack on g4 with f5, for example. White's position has now become much more solid than the one we saw earlier. And now let me play the position forward a couple of moves so we can see how this idea develops itself. Queen d7, a very logical move, one of the best ones, attacking that h3 weakness. King g2, as I promised, protecting h3 and the f3 knight at the same time. Something like rook f2 e8, putting a rook onto a very nice square, and now finally unpinning with queen c2. Voila! We just solved the problem. There is no pin anymore. And now let's finish it off with something like bishop g6, protecting the h7 pawn. Rook a to e1 developing, takes 6, and we have a very nice position for white. White's pieces are all nicely developed, white's king side is not overextended, and the fact that we moved the g pawn and the h pawn a little bit forward also facilitates the control over the fourth rank. Now, let's come back to this position because I assume that some of the more vigilant members of the audience would have thought, wait a minute. What if bishop takes, and then king takes, and then queen takes. Isn't it supposed to be better for black? And the answer is a resounding no. White is already +8. All white needs to do is to play rook h1, and as you can see, white has got a seemingly unstoppable attack. And now to answer your final question, which you may have, when do we play g3? When is it good? When is it bad? Because, you know, as good as g3 might be, remember that we are still putting our king on the g2 square. From g2, the king can get a bit weak, granted, I can admit that, but you can get away with g3 and the subsequent king g2 in the positions where, first of all, we've got this little diagonal, the light squared one, slightly blocked up. In this case, we've got the static pawns on d4 and d5. That means that any possible threats coming from this diagonal are going to be quite unlikely, at least for the time being. It's really hard to open this diagonal up in the next couple of moves. And secondly, something that always helps is the fact that you still have your light squared bishop intact, so that just in case this diagonal gets opened up at some time in the future, your bishop can help you handle these threats. So yeah, I hope that you will memorize this idea. You cannot believe how many positions there are in which g3 absolutely knocks it out of the park, and there is nothing wrong with it. And yeah, if you just so happened to find this video useful, please like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitch. I stream Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, usually. Also find me on chess.com, join our Discord, all that good stuff. And I'm going to talk to you very soon, my favorite unintentional gambiteers. Love you all. See ya in the next one.